I always just listen to them.
Oh, awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Now, there are questions more people don't, stop to ask. Now, what do you do? Not what you, oh my God. Sorry, let me start again.
It's okay.
Yeah. Now, there's a question most people don't stop to ask. Not what do you do, but something deeper. Who are you without your work? Because for a lot of people, those two things have quietly become the same. We measure our days by output, our value by productivity, our identity by what we contribute. And when that system starts to crack, so does something internal. Today's conversation explores that tension between work, identity, and what it means to reclaim yourself. I am joined by Nicole Johnson, a burnout coach and researcher who spent decades inside high performance environments and now helps people rethink their relationship with work and productivity. Nicole, welcome to Thought Out Last. It's a pleasure to have you.
Hi, Bless. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, Nicole, before we kick things off, here on Thought Out Last, I and my listeners, we want to get to know our guest on a personal level. So, if you don't mind, can you tell us more about yourself?
Nicole Johnson. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the States. I am a full-time single parent to an awesome 11-year-old boy
Oh,
who is
wow.
also medically complex. We love it here in Minnesota. I am a creative. I love to work out and be outdoors, but I also am an avid book reader. I love reading fiction. I love escaping right now, and seems there's a lot to escape these days. So I
Yeah.
especially love fantasy and world building and that sort of thing. And my son is very artistic, and so listening to him kind of build his new worlds and characters is really wonderful. I love listening to music and dancing. And on top of all those things, I am a creative also in my work. I started in the late 90s as a graphic designer and taught myself to code and got into user experience design and research. It really wasn't named that until the early 2000s, and did a lot of work in design and research before I kind of knew what I was doing and before the craft really became framed as user experience. In the last 15 years, I have been leading teams at Target, Best Buy, and I recently left Amazon last July, June or July, and have been working on how I can support people in navigating their own burnout and changing their relationship with work and building more sustainable lives and taking care of themselves and seeing self-care as a non-negotiable, not a nice to have.
Wow. Nicole, it's such a pleasure to meet you once again. Thank you for letting us get to know you and welcome to Thought Out Last. And of course, it's amazing that you have such a wonderful, beautiful child that you're currently bringing up to be a very wonderful human being in society. And I like the fact that you said he's creative and you tend to encourage, this creative talent of his that he has. Once again, thank you
Hmm.
for coming on the podcast and you're welcome.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah. So let's start here. When did you first begin to question the relationship between work and identity?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I had to think about this one because I think probably started questioning maybe 15 or more years ago, because I can remember some of my old coworkers are now best friends of mine. And we would often say, when we would get, uh, kind of frustrated with work, we'd say things like, I need to just stop carrying less. And that became something that I heard both from my coworkers as well as people that reported to me. And and it was just kind of a joke, but it really wasn't. We felt that if we cared less about work, we could change our relationship with work, but we didn't necessarily articulate it or look at that as on a deeper level. So it wasn't really until fall of 2024 that I got pretty sick. I woke up one day with shingles on my face and briefly there were concerns that I might lose my eyesight because of
Oh
it
my God.
at the time. Yes, I was. experiencing regular panic attacks for nearly a year, feelings of rage, and it was impacting my son too, and his mental health. And I could see, and while it wasn't directed at him, I could see how much it was impacting him. And I truly realized then how much the weight of what I was putting into performing my job and how people reviewed me and their perception of me, how much that weighed on me. It was like I couldn't stop working. Whether I was at work or in meetings or not, I was always thinking about work, always thinking in my head about the conversations I needed to have. And like I said, I woke up that day with shingles and ended up speaking to a coworker shortly after that who had come back from her own leave of absence. And she looked at me and she said, "You need to take some time off." And I think I needed someone to kind of give me that permission to actually care for myself because I think we internalize these problems and we see them as problems that we need to solve versus, and it's hard for us, especially as high achievers, to rest. We see rest as almost a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
But I did end up taking that leave of absence last it was December of 2024 through April of last year of 2025. And that's really where the real work began, where I started to uncover or started to look deeper at how much work was tied to who I thought I was.
Wow. You know, everything you said just reminded me of something I discussed with a guest. Now, I think oh my, I can't remember. But this was what he explained to me. He said, you remember, if you think back to when human beings were not yet, advanced, we were still like hunter-gatherer. He said during that time,
Hmm.
we would usually go out to hunt animals and, we'll eat them. He said there may be times where maybe our small village or small enclosure, or maybe we would live in a cave and the cave would be, let's say, a wild animal, maybe a bear or something, could kind of like come in contact with us. And for a moment, our adrenaline will spike up and we'll just be on guard. We'll want to try and escape and save save ourselves. He said that's how it used to be then. But the moment we go to a place where it was safe and we are much more relaxed, the adrenaline would subside, everything, you just become more relaxed. The tension would go away. He said, well, that is much more relatable. You are seeing the fear in front of you. So there's a reason why you are tense and you feel stressed. But the moment the bear or the wild animal leaves, you feel more relaxed and you feel more chill. But he said modern life is different. He said you're always tensed because the how do I put it? He said now it's no longer a bear, it's your job, it's your
Hmm.
bills, it's how you're going to take care of your children, it's how you're going to take care of this, how you're going to pay for that. Say all these things causes our adrenaline to spike because the body cannot tell the difference between a bill and a bear.
And a
To
bear, yeah.
Yeah, to the body it's the same, the same threat to safety or threat to life, kind of, if you will. So he said, because of the fact that we don't have a time or a moment where we are just chill or relaxed, some people to even achieve that chill state, they have to indulge in different kind of, narcotics and psychedelic substances to just be relaxed. It's almost next
Hmm.
to impossible to just relax normally without, except you are very, very rich or something. So that's why I really don't understand sometimes. And it has gone to the point where we even praise this culture of not relaxing, not taking a break, to the point, like you said, taking a break off work, we make you seem like you're unproductive or you're not hardworking enough or something. And I think it's actually quite detrimental to most people, especially the workforce, because I mean, let's be honest, the majority of them are being exploited by these oligarchs. But I mean, that's something we could get into if
Agreed.
we want to. So, and it's just absolutely mind-boggling. I think the working hours should be reduced. Lots of things should be done. Lots of reforms should be signed to really make sure that people that are in the working population are getting ample time of rest and relaxation so that they'll be much more productive as opposed to just treating them. I mean, we are human beings at the end of the day. We're not like, it's not like we are machines or anything. So I totally understand everything and I can relate to that. I once worked for someone and trust me, I hated it with I have just one liver, but I hated it with every liver in my body. I hated it so much. I did not like that
Hmm.
experience. I did not like that experience at all. So I can absolutely relate. Now, from the outside, many high achievers look successful, but internally, something feels off. Now, what do you think is actually going on beneath the surface?
Yeah, high achievers, we tend to be overthinkers. We're really good at seeing around corners and identifying problems before they arise, which makes us successful by workplace productivity standards because we can start uh, we can see kind of what's coming and identify risks and problems that might arise and get in front of them. But we're just starting to talk about the toll that it takes personally as well. Yes, we can identify those problems ahead of time. What we've also likely uncovered is 100 other scenarios in our overthinking that will never happen. And so those conversations that we say the conversations that we might need to have, and then that overthinking happens after work. It happens before work at 2 a.m. You wake up in the middle of the night and you start thinking about a conversation or a problem that might happen at work. And it means that we're always on. And to your earlier point, we have no ability to like actually unplug. And then we have less and less capacity to show up for the things that truly matter. So, to your earlier point about the hunter and gatherer, and like stress isn't bad, right? Stress isn't inherently bad, but our
Yeah,
bodies
of
need
course,
time to
yes.
recover. It needs to go up and down. And what we're doing in the modern workplace is we are always on. We think that we never stop working, right? So we might
Yeah,
technically work full time and whatever that is, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. We're actually maybe in the office or working at our computer, but we never actually stop when we walk away because our brains are always on. We're answering Slack messages or Teams and taking calls, and because there's so much uncertainty in the workplace, especially now with AI and layoffs that are happening, that it just, they're not being very transparent about why those layoffs are actually happening. We are
yes,
concerned that we might lose our jobs, so we need to stay on even more. So there's a concern that if we set boundaries and we unplug, that we might be deemed, less productive and thereby more expendable.
yes. And it's just crazy, man. It's honestly crazy.
Yeah.
The, the,
It's not fair. And the type of burnout that we're seeing right now on this systemic level is it's deeply, deeply depleting, right? So I remember talking about
yes,
burnout like in my early 20s, in the 90s or, early 2000s. And that back then with workplace, that was like maybe I had an extra hard week, right? And
yes,
I would then I would say, well, I just need some extra rest or a weekend of rest or to take a day off or go on vacation and could come back recharged. But the way the modern workplace is, it's not a personal issue. It is a deeply systemic and structural issue because there's less humanity in the workplace. There is no tolerance for actually caring for yourself, but people are still seeing it as a personal problem and they're blaming themselves. We're multitasking in between or in meetings, like if you don't have to show up for that meeting and be contributing, you're probably doing something else. There's no time for white space or, to think because you're
yes,
jumping from one meeting to the next. And so you can't actually be creative and strategic and innovative because you're bouncing from one thing to the next, and your brain and that cognitive overload is not allowing you to really bring meaning to what the work that you're doing. And then if you think about like there's the emotional labor. If you're in a leadership position or mentoring or anything where you feel responsible for other humans, if you are someone that actually wants to bring meaning to the workplace, you're likely taking on the emotional load of other people too and trying to help make things better for them while continuing to stuff your own feelings and push your own self-care down.
yes. Man, it's now what I wanted to ask you, you know, how do people slowly begin to tie their sense of, self-worth to productivity? How do you think that happens? Well, how does it even begin to become a
Yeah.
thing? Because it's absolutely now the norm. It's almost as if even People that
Yes.
love you, your parents, your loved ones, your friends, if they feel like, oh, this guy is not productive, or this guy, they'll start tagging you as lazy. And I know, of course, there are definitely lazy people, people that, yeah, I think you guys would call them in America bums, if I'm not mistaken. There are people like that. Yeah,
Sure. Yeah,
of
there's
course.
probably several words. Yeah.
Yeah, but there are still people, that are doing their best. They're working so hard. It's just they've not gotten their big break yet, but they are working like
Hmm.
they are the hardest worker out there. But because of the fact that society in general has tied someone's self-worth or dignity to how much they have in the bank or in their pockets, they become basically, let me know, for lack of a better word, subhuman in society. How does that even become a thing?
Hmm.
And
Yeah, me
I
and
think, okay, sorry,
go
please
ahead.
continue.
Well,
Okay.
I was me and my friends and with my clients, we often talk about the conditioning and unlearning, or that will, has the unlearning that we're needing to do now, and the
Mhm.
conditioning that's happened to get us here. So if you think about like early career, uh, you're rewarded for over delivering, right? And those rewards start to feel good, and you get promoted. Maybe you get promoted, or you start seeing promotions, or you start seeing more money. That's conditioning already starting to happen. And it feels really good to get those, to be complimented, to be recognized. But how often are people actually saying, is this actually the job this feels really good to get more, to make more money and to take on more responsibility? But I don't think people are actually asking themselves if that job or the work that they're doing or how much they're working is actually serving them in a way that builds the life that they want to lead, right? Because they're looking
Yes.
at the recognition from it's externally motivated versus what does this actually mean for me? What does is this contributing to the life that I want? So, and then in leadership roles, we reinforce it, right? You're accountable for everything, even when you don't have control. And then I think about like parents, I'm as a single parent, I don't have any backup. There's real pressure to maintain stability. And so we start
Yes.
looking at the over reliance on our work identity. We see having a job and working for someone else as our only way to be stable. And this is something that comes up a lot with my clients, right? They say stability is important to them, but they only see stability from the lens of the job that someone else where you're taking a paycheck instead
Yes.
of because we've kind of been conditioned that there's one way to live, right? You go
Yes.
to school, you go to college, you graduate, you get married, you have kids, you climb the corporate ladder, and that's the way you're supposed to, and then you retire. But there are many different ways, as there are different people on the planet to live and find true success on an individual level and find true stability without it being the way that our culture and our society has dictated to us. But
Yeah.
when you've been conditioned your whole life to see things through that lens, see stability through that lens, it's really, really hard to define it differently, right? Because your
Yes.
parents and the people around you are going to continue, and not necessarily meaning harm, but that's what we see as the way to live. We don't, people tend to not see alternative paths and journeys.
And even if there are alternatives, it's usually very quiet. It's not like it's loud or, mainstream that lots of people can
That's
see.
right.
I once interviewed a guest, right? She honestly, her crazy is as crazy as it is, it's also that inspiring. So she and her husband, right? They own a sailing boat and they just sail around the world essentially with their son.
Mm,
So she said, her and her husband worked for a few years and they were like, you know what, this life is not for us. We can't just continue working all the time, going to work, coming back in the evening, having to. It was just too much for them. So they sold everything they had, and the husband learned how to sail and they bought a boat. Honestly, it's a very long story. It wasn't easy in the beginning. In fact, I told her that lots of people must have told you that you're a crazy person because honestly, who just wakes up one morning, sells their house, sells everything, and goes to buy a boat and plans to sail the world with their child? It's just honestly crazy. But I was like, you know what? you can just do things, man. You can just wake up one morning and be like, it's my life. I'm here to live it
You
for myself,
can.
not for other people.
Yeah.
So you can just do things. It's just, there's something that I don't know if it's Socrates or sorry, Socrates or however his name is pronounced. One Greek
Socrates.
philosopher.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he said, you know, what we I think he said the problems we go through in life is way more magnified in our minds as opposed to what we are seeing in everyday life. Whatever you might be going through is way more magnified in your minds. Actually, not that big of a problem. So essentially, I could say an obstacle that I might be seeing in front of me, maybe as the current life I'm living, what is going on in my life. It's not that big. It's just my mind making it seem so, so bogus,
Hmm.
so out of this world. So, if life is just placing so much pressure on you and it's becoming too much to the point where it's even taking a toll on your body, which is what you don't want, because we have a saying in my country, you have 99 problems until you have one health problem and becomes just one problem.
Hmm.
And when the body is placed on so much stress, stress is not bad, true, but I mean, if you can't turn off, if you can't take a break, it becomes bad. And before you know what's
Hmm.
happening, it starts to take a toll on you physically and you can fall sick or something. Like you said, do you know what it means? I'm just trying to, sorry, I'm not even like emphasized on that. Do you know what? I don't know. First off, sorry, I'm saying this, but I don't know what shingles is. But what I heard after that was, do you know what it means to wake up and you are going blind? I was like, what? How?
Yeah.
Do you know how much stress you must have been going through to the point where your eyes want to
Hmm.
give up? Your eyes literally want to give up on you. Do you know what that means? Honestly, I would sue the workplace, sue the manager. I would even sue the country. You guys, you guys want to kill me after my life? What? What?
Hmm.
I can't wrap my head around it. So it's man, it's just so what I'm trying to say is, even if lots of people are placing pressure on you, they want you to be productive, or they feel like, man, let them get I don't want to say something profane. Man, screw
I'm
them.
open to it. Yeah.
Man, screw them, honestly. God forbid you die out of all the stress and all. They will just mourn you for like maybe a week or two, then they will go to Burger King and eat burgers. Man, who cares, man? So there's no point just stressing so much, especially for peanuts. You stress so much all your life, and someone in some kind of because they were born with a wealthy name or they had know someone in government, they will be taking all the money for your hard work, and you just be there picking up the
Hmm.
scraps. It's just, man, it's just crazy, man.
It
So,
is.
yeah,
Agreed.
wow. So that's just it. So, if you're going through so much, you feel like you're stressing, take a break, man. Relax. Trust
Hmm.
me, nothing is going to happen. I mean, it's way more better than going blind or, dying from the stress of work. Take a break and just relax and just take a chill pill.
It's
Sorry, I'm
really
just,
too bad the amount
yeah.
of stories that I hear. I mean, my own story is minimal compared to other stories that I've heard. Cancer diagnoses, uh, in lots of autoimmune conditions that come up, and and stress is never just stress, right? When it's chronic stress, it really you're not getting the relief that you need. It will find a way to come out, and it will force you to take a break. It will force you to step away. So uh you can either build a life that's sustainable, or you can ignore what's happening to your body, and your body will force you to find something more sustainable. It's your
Yes.
choice, right?
So you think ultimately okay, when it comes to this, right? You can't just wake up one morning and like, although that woman, she, her and her husband did that stuff where they sold off their house, and that may not be something you want to do. Honestly, not everybody's that, wild and should I say, hi, let me just say wild. Some people just want to be stable. They want stability. They want to have a
Yes.
job. They want to have a family. They want to live in the same street for the rest of their life in the same area. And that's perfectly fine. That's okay. So
Totally
how,
fine.
yes.
Yes.
So how would you advise those people? How would they go about having that stability, having that security, but not compromising their health in the process?
So I'm doing some of this work with clients now because not everyone has a desire to be a founder or to go independent, and that's its own risk, and that's also hard work, right?
Yes.
But I think in the environment that we're in right now, where there is so much uncertainty, and you are not guaranteed to have a job tomorrow or, in a month, and you want to build something more sustainable, you still need to change your relationship with work. right? If you
Yeah.
continue to feel like work is where you're going to pull meaning from, instead of work is, if you want to stay in that job and you want to have that stability, then how might you start to shift that to work is where I take the paycheck so that I can fund the things in my life that actually matter to me. And that is, there is no one way to go about like changing your internal narrative on that. That's a deeply individual and personal path, right? But we can't, in the, this is my opinion, in this modern workplace dynamic with the uncertainty and the AI work that's kind of being dictated and forced into the
Yes.
workforce, you can't keep your identity attached to what you're doing and try to find meaning in the work and feel like you can stay healthy and have a sustainable life. And I'm sure people will disagree with me on this, but this is what I'm seeing in my work. You can change, really deeply look at who you are outside of work. Like, what are your core values? What are the things that matter to you? And how can leveraging those, how can you build boundaries around the way that you're working and what you're saying yes and no to, so that you still have the energy to show up for the things that matter to you outside of work. Because if you continue to be disappointed by what's being asked of you at work and tying your worth to your productivity, you aren't going to have any energy outside of work for the people that matter and the things that matter to you.
Wow. Thank you so much for this wonderful response, Nicole. I honestly love this response you gave us because it's like you said, do not tie, your worth, your self-worth to the work you do. Now, that doesn't entirely mean that you should not take pride in your work or you should not, enjoy what you,
Agreed.
but you shouldn't necessarily make yourself all about, oh, who are you? Well, I'm an engineer, I'm a
Right.
doctor. I mean, come on, you're
Hmm.
also a father, you're a brother, you're a sister, you're a family man, you're a mother. You understand what I mean? I'm a community leader. Uh, Anything else, honestly, being an engineer is not it's not a bad thing per se, but if it's now becoming something that it's taking a toll on you physically, I mean, at that point, maybe it's becoming getting close to being a bad thing per se. So there are
And
lots
it's
of
not who
things.
you are, right? Like there's so
Yes,
much more to you than what you do.
do
And so
wow,
it's, yes, I think you made a really good point that you can still love what you do. There are very meaningful jobs out there. You can still love that and discover who you are outside of that, right? That's not all of you. There's
yes,
so much more to you. Your worth is also inherent. It is not gained by what you produce. You were born with worth. You were born with unique talents and gifts. You were born with interests and values, right? Or you developed those values. So by doing that work, how that will also help you define how is your work bringing meaning? And if it's not, is that somewhere you stay? And if you do, how can you set up boundaries around it so that you're protecting your peace?
wow. Thank you so much for that wonderful response. Honestly, I love that so much. There's more to, and honestly, if you just limit yourself to the work you do, you might even forego other aspects of yourself that could actually eventually make you more money than even that job you're doing. So just there's
Amen.
more
That's
to you.
exactly right.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's more to you than
Yes.
just the job you're doing, especially when it's becoming so much. You forget to pick up a child from school. You forget to actually even have a wife. Oh, my job, my job. I mean, come on, man. How much are you even making that you want to die on top of the job? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the craziest part. It's one of the reasons why I even stopped because I worked there before I got into the university. I decided to work there for some time. Man, was it? It was just, oh, it was something else, man. It was so bad. I even had a fight with my manager. That was how bad it was. It's like, bro,
Mm-hmm.
you're literally I've not even got into my 20 years and you're exploiting me. Are you serious right now? What kind of nonsense is that? We got into
Mm-hmm.
it, bro, like a real bro. I'm not proud of it, honestly, but that was how bad it was. I had to honestly had a physical. I needed to have a physical altercation with him for him to understand that what he was doing is very, very bad. Before he eventually,
Mm-hmm.
I think the people that came there, the people that are working there now, I think he's treating them more better. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm hoping it's like that. But that's how it just is. There's more to you than just the job you do. Thank you
That's
so much for
right.
that for that wonderful
Yes.
response, Nicole. Now, Nicole, zooming out, right? Do you think our culture is starting to shift on this, or are we still deeply stuck in it?
I see both in my work every day. More people are questioning, especially after the mass layoffs that continue to happen and AI disruption. And I think that's a whole other show is what AI is doing and how that's being, brought into the world that
Yes,
feels deeply wrong. Not I don't spite AI. I love it as a partner, but the way that it's being kind of pushed into experiences doesn't make sense. But companies are still optimizing for efficiency and output. And that's what I'm talking about. They're forcing people to use AI versus saying, does this actually solve a problem? So this is what we often say in my field in user experience design and research. It's a solution looking for a problem. It isn't that the problem was defined and then you find a solution. And maybe AI is the solution, maybe it's not. It is just like put AI on everything. So the real shift is happening really at the individual level. It would be so great if we could just get a collective of people to quit their jobs and and push back against the oligarchy, right? But like that's not the
yes,
reality of what can happen because there it is very expensive to live. And
yes.
people need to
Work.
decide this at the individual level, right? They need to decide how to push back, and that's going to look different for each person. But I am seeing that, and then, and I'm definitely in a bubble. But I have many of my friends have either left or and started their own things, or they're planning it. And in the communities that I'm in, there is an uprising. It feels a bit quiet right now, but I do
Yes.
feel like it's going to have a positive impact to shift things. Hopefully, it doesn't take too long. I think it's interesting also, like when I started coaching almost a year ago, like more full time, my initial focus was on women in midlife because you had like hormones in that transition as
Yes.
another layer of complexity. But as I've been writing and going through my own journey, I realized that this burnout is an epidemic and it's affecting everyone, even our youngest generations. And so my clients it is really, all over the place. It's women, men of all ages. Um, so we've really normalized unsustainable ways of working, like I said,
Yes.
across generations. And then we've individualized the consequences, right? People are like sitting there in their homes trying to figure out how to make it better because they're afraid to talk about how they're feeling, right? Not
Yes.
and but I think we're starting to see people come out and raise their voices and say this isn't okay. um it's burnout is often treated as that personal problem, right? Instead of acknowledging that it's a structural one. Again, I think
Yes.
that narrative is starting to change. I think people are talking about it and they're starting to rise up. Uh, and this push for workplaces to prioritize output and velocity over actually delivering quality outcomes, that can't last forever because this AI slop and this experience slop that's being delivered out there is not going to deliver the right impact. That's not going to work for long. So I firmly believe we're going to see some sort of a burst, and I think this toxic workplace dynamic is going to be forced to pivot. I just hope that happens sooner rather than later. And
Wow.
something else that I want to say is that you can't self-care your way out of a system that's misaligned,
Yeah.
right? Like if the system is misaligned, you have to take care of yourself and figure out what you want to do about it. But like you cannot change that system. You can try. I tried for decades, but you have to decide what you're going to do with that and where you're going to put up boundaries to protect yourself.
Wow. Thank you so much for that wonderful response, Nico.
Hmm.
And one other thing I want to add is I spoke with an AI expert one time, and there was something he mentioned that I found very profound. He said, now, lots of people were complaining that, first off, the jobs are already as stressful as it is. The pay is not good
Right.
enough. And then again, AI is here to, as they say, take our jobs away from us. Well, he explained that truth of the matter is, well, there were lots of like technicalities to his explanation. I don't want to state them so I don't make our interview too long. But what he said was AI doesn't is nowhere near being able to do anything autonomously. It
No,
still
it's
needs
not.
human, it still needs human input. So what he said was, he
Hmm.
said the people that AI is supposedly going to take away their jobs. Well, that's not actually what's going to happen. What is going to happen is your job will be taken away from you and given to someone who knows how to use AI to do that job
Mm, yeah.
faster and better. So my advice to people who maybe feel so burnt out, of course, like I said, you can't, like you said, sorry, you can't self-care your way out of the system, but at least you can make things easy for you enough to be able to find a way or to create some kind of coalition where you guys can come together and make the system better. Maybe make some union or reforms, or I don't know the the oh my god, what should I say? I'm not necessarily a politician. I don't know how they do that stuff, but you know everything that has to do with that to make the workforce better. So you can implement AI in what you do. Fine. I believe there are lots of talented people out there creating new AI software and systems to make people's jobs better. I even spoke with a guest one time who creates AI bots for lawyers. So you can imagine. Wow, that's I was like, what are you trying to tell me that I'm going to take Grok to the court and it's going to win a case for me or what? He was like, well, that's that's a funny way to go to, but not necessarily that. Um, an AI bot can help you make a better case to, help your client win the case in court. And I was like, wow, that's absolutely mind-boggling. So you can imagine. So you can basically implement AI into your the kind of job you do to make it, more efficient, to reduce your burnout, to reduce the amount of time you spend in the office, and just find a way. Just, I mean, be creative. It's why we're human beings. I'm literally talking to you from a small rectangular device that wasn't conceivable
Hmm.
to 99.99% of the human race like 100 years ago. So you can
Hmm.
imagine it's as if I'm right there with you. It's just like, okay, we're using it's an audio podcast, but if it was video and I had a very big screen, I was using a very big screen. I mean, there will literally be no difference. So you can imagine. So just be creative and find a way to implement AI into your work to reduce your burnout and any other thing you can do to, aside not tying your identity to your job, outsourcing some parts of your job to AI could also help. And once again, AI is nowhere close to taking anyone's job
No.
away from them. There will
Even
always
though
be a
that's
need
not what
for
you're
it.
hearing, right? But even
Yes.
before using AI to do your job, I still say figure out who you are first and what that job is that's going to support the life that you want, versus trying to add AI onto it, a job that you're already doing. First, know whether that's the job for you.
Oh wow, that's the thing too. Oh, I've even noticed that. Oh my, we forgot to mention this. Thank you so much for reminding me, Nicole. I've noticed that people when they do something they love or something they enjoy, they don't necessarily ever feel okay. I don't know. I may be wrong with this, but I don't think they necessarily ever feel burnout per se. I think when they do what they enjoy, what they love, what's their passion, what they feel is their calling, they do it so much they never feel burnt out in any way. So that's what I think.
Yeah, and that's so it's interesting. I've written an article about this on Substack that burnout is feeding the billionaire machine. One of the things that I noticed, I was highly paid in my jobs, and I was a big spender. I definitely contributed to, the capitalist society. And
Yes.
what I have found is as I've become more and more content with what I'm doing, I spend so much less. I have less of a need for spending, or
Wow.
desire to spend, when I'm content. And so being content and regulated is not good for the billionaire machine. And so that is another way to fight back.
Wow, wow, that's actually wonderful. Thank you so much for those inspiring words. Nico, this has been an absolute pleasure. I love the conversation we've had so far, and I'm very sure that my listeners have enjoyed us, talking to each other. Nico, where can my listeners, learn more about your work and connect with you?
So my website is dropmoreholdless.com. You can sign up for free. I offer a handful of free energy audits every month as a starting place. If you're feeling depleted or like something is off, that is a great place to start. It's a free 50 minutes with me, and I hear about how you're spending your day. And oftentimes, just talking through you know how you're spending your time, there's more awareness there than you realize, and I can offer some meaningful small adjustments you can make to your day to help take back a bit more agency. That's often a starting point for working with me longer term. I also offer workshops usually once a month. I have one coming up soon on identity, and I write a lot on Substack. So same, drop more, hold less on Substack. And so a lot of these topics I've covered and deeply and gone into some of the research around the behavioral science behind burnout and what we're experiencing right now.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Nicole. Nicole, once again, it's
Mhm.
been an absolute pleasure to have you on my podcast. Thank you for, taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here to enlighten I and my listeners. Now, before I finally say goodbye, do you have any food for thoughts, any finishing words you want to leave I and my listeners?
I would say if you're feeling burned out, or maybe you're not even using that word, maybe you're just feeling tired and like you can't show up for the things that used to matter for you, start first by noticing, not changing anything, but just paying attention to where your energy is going and how you're spending your day. If you were to write down a list of all the things that make you you, what would that look like? Is that entirely around your job, or are there, who are you? And how are you actually allowing yourself to be that person that you were meant to be? What's most important to you? And how is your day built around those things? What are your non-negotiables? The things that you want to make sure that every day is there's time for those things, and make sure that you're not deprioritizing those things. You're finding ways to keep them.
All right. That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Nicole. Nicole, please do have a wonderful day and do take care of yourself.
Yes, you too. Thanks so much, Bless, for having me. This was wonderful.
Yes, awesome. Take care. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.